course. Here we are. The purpose of ANote is to make music more valuable. So make the music industry recognized as a valuable asset, make catalogs be valuable asset also for, not only for, you know, a limited circle of market insiders, but also for the wider community. And how do we do this? We do this with the platform that I will also share right now, the platform for during the webinar. It's based in 3 phases. So we have a first phase, which is the primary market, where catalog owners, like for example, Laura from Sundance, have the opportunity of listing their catalog for investors to bid, to take exposure to it in the first place, in the primary market, the first time. And after the primary market, the auction phase closes, there is a secondary market, meaning it's a moment in which investors that purchased a share of the catalog in the primary market can exchange between themselves. It's somehow like it happens on a traditional stock exchange when you can buy a share of Amazon, or Elon Musk bought shares of Twitter recently, right? So we have replicated the same business model on our platform for music and for catalogs. And then, of course, there is the most important aspect that when you purchase a share in a music catalog, you're also entitled to receive a share of the royalties. So the whole business model that we have is based on giving the opportunity to investors, fans, and anybody who is actually in love with the music industry to receive a royalties, basically, as if they were music industry insiders. I will now also describe somehow from a kind of a wider perspective why you can look at newspapers and see that there are many investors, many big investors that are from investment funds, who are also big record labels that are starting to accumulate, to invest a lot, right, into music catalogs. Why is music right now recognized as an interesting asset class? There are mainly 3 dynamics proper from the financial sector that you can recognize in music, and one from a community point of view. So from a community point of view, of course, the moment that you invest in music catalog, that you purchase a share of a music right, you're helping an artist. You're helping an artist, a music project, a record label, a publisher, by providing liquidity, funding, financial leverage. And then, of course, as self-benefits from an investment point of view, you're accessing to a market which is growing. The streaming economy is growing, and it's not meant to stop any soon. Until 2030, at least, they say that it's continuing to grow 7, 10, 15, 20%, depending on the year. And it's also generating passive income. The moment that you have music rights in your portfolio, you are receiving royalties. And in a moment in which interest rates are still kind of low, inflation is picking up, I mean, receiving liquidity on a yearly basis is pretty interesting for many investors, especially big ones. Think about the pension fund. And then it's diversification, because every asset class, most of the asset classes, I mean, are right now correlated, but you can understand that music listening habits are not correlated with the wider financial markets or with how Bitcoin is performing and so on. So these are the kind of reasons why. And now I would like to introduce also the catalog of Sundance, which is the subject and the king of the call, let's say. Before giving an introduction to Laura, I will share the screen, and here we are at the platform. So this is an overview of how our platform, our investment platform at ANote looks like. And for some of you, this is the first time that you're looking at the platform. For some others,
sorry to interrupt you, Marzio, but we are seeing a zoom of the presentation. We're not seeing the.
Fantastic. Yes. Let me share the screen. Okay, here we are. So this is the platform, as I was saying. For some of you, this is the first time. For some others, it's not. And you have the most important section of the platform is the marketplace, where you see catalogs that are either in the secondary market phase. Here you see they trade. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down, depending on who is exchanging them. And here instead you have the primary market opportunities. In this particular case, we will look at the Sundance Music catalog, which is the catalog of the record label that Laura is representing today, which is Sundance Music. It's a catalog comprising more than 4,300 songs. It's a catalog that right now, as you can see, we have received 148 bids, which represent 89% of the shares of the catalog that are currently on offer, meaning that there is still there is still around 10% of the catalog that can be bid. And let's see if by the end of the webinar, we will reach 100%. Okay, without further ado, let me share the screen again and let me go to presenting Laura. Here we are. Laura.
Hi, Marzio.
Hi, welcome on board.
Thank you.
Let me introduce you, or maybe let me give you the word to introduce yourself, to explain a little bit about what Sundance Music is, maybe the history behind.
Sure. My name is Laura Littauer, and I am based out of Copenhagen, where the label is also from. I've been working with the label for 10 years, but is actually kind of born into it, since this is the passion of my father, who started this label 40 years ago. So even though I tried to do something else, I came back needing to work in the music business. And besides being here and being on the label, I am in a couple of boards in the music industry, making sure that we get all the music streams or all the income streams that is needed in this business. The label itself has been existing for 40 years. Last year, or this winter, actually, like me. And it's basically a jazz label. The core is around jazz music, but with some, how can you say it, outliners to other kinds of music, like world music, or even rock music, or a bit of pop. So the core is jazz and improvisation, but we also move a bit around that kind of genre. We have, as Marzio just said, around 4,300, maybe 4,500 tracks at our label, so we have quite a legacy. And we are what you call a 360 company. We have a label, which is what we're talking about today. And then we have a publishing company, which is not a part of this auction. And then we do a small magazine, a Danish magazine around jazz music. And we have a cafe and a venue in the city center of Copenhagen, where we have live jazz every Friday and Saturday.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah. And for this Copenhagen Jazz Festival, which some of you may know, we have, I think, 30 concerts in 10 days in our venue. So we're busy people.
Thank you, Laura. Amazing presentation. And let's maybe explain a little bit, especially for who is new, what you guys did basically, right, with us. It's what happened to Sundance is that what they did, and why we are speaking with them today, is that, of course, their catalog is listed on our platform, but just to make it very simple, what did they do? Basically, they give the opportunity to investors, fan base, the community, whoever is in love with, the catalog of more than 4,300 songs, to own a piece, a small portion of their songs. So anytime that any of the songs that Sundance has produced so far in the last 40 years is going to be listened and streaming, for example, or in digital consumption and so on and so forth, a portion of the royalties will actually flow to the investors that bought a portion of it. Is this correct, Laura?
Yes, this is correct.
Exactly. So this is what is happening now, and I think that we can also have, as a next step of the webinar today, kind of a conversation about why, like why opening up, let's say, the catalog, or what is the kind of evolution of the music business that we're seeing right now, and why it can be important, maybe to the importance of funding. Specifically, I think that's something that is, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes that it's not very easy to understand from somebody who's not from the music business, is the management behind the catalog. So what do you actually do? What is the daily activities or the management activities, the active management that you need to do in order to?
We are a fairly small company, in that understanding that we are 5 to 7 people working here. Some are full-time, some are part-time. So we do kind of everything. Everybody, of course, has their role, but we know what's going on in all of the business. But what is to be done? Well, it's a lot of our work is about metadata, making sure that everything is registered correct in all different databases, and this comes really much down to the incomes, because we have to make sure that our content is registered correct, and that goes both for streaming as for radio all over the world. So a lot of our work is on metadata, and then of course it's on the music. The music side is not my daily work, but we have some very good A&Rs in our company who has been in the business for a long time and who has a good feeling of what works for a greater audience, but also what is kind of, you know, the hidden gem, or which is quirky and makes the label kind of special. So you get like that broad content of jazz that's not just popular, but also with high quality, and giving maybe finds makers something extra that they won't see in another label. And what else do we do? Well, we have a lot of work in making sure that our music is playlisted. Jazz music is quite popular for playlisting because there's a lot of background music, which is jazz, that goes for restaurants, and it goes for you in your private home. When you have dinner, you put on that Spotify playlist saying dinner jazz, and a lot of people listen to those kind of playlists. So a lot of our work is preparing and prepping our aggregators to make sure that we get on those playlists.
Well, wide set of activities indeed, starting from finding the A&R artist repertoire, so the recording, to the actually.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is in this case with you guys, we are talking about the digital income, and we're talking about the income streams from radio and from shops and restaurants and stuff. But of course, there's a lot of other work that from when the artist arrives in our place, we start, of course, the recording process, talking to the artist about what should be on this recording, making the recording. And these days, we actually make both CDs, vinyl, and of course digital repertoire of all our repertoire. So there's a lot of work in that. And then the next step is, of course, to broaden out these productions to the rest of the world, not just to Denmark. And there we have publicists around the world who work specifically with our music. They're actually not a part of those 5 to 7 people that I was talking about, but they are like extras, employees around the world. And then we have distributors that we have had for several years, so they know the company very well, and they know the catalog very well, so they know where to place it. And then of course making sure that we're registered in all the right databases all around the world, which is a big job. Yeah, what else do we do? We do radio plugging. At the moment, we've done a lot of radio plugging in the States, which has given us some top 10 placements on American jazz radios. There's so much. We help our artists touring. We help them get funds to tour. We help them get funds to do promo. Yeah.
No, I think that's something that is, I mean, the portion of the catalog, which is the recording rights, basically the master rights that you have listed on our platform, the royalties. Let's say that the biggest majority of the royalties, they come from digital consumption, right? Digital consumption means nowadays mostly streaming, right? Streaming, digital downloads are basically inexistent. Something that I think is very interesting, especially for those of the public today that are kind of a little bit financial oriented, is to look at the growth of the income, the royalties that you have received from streaming over the years. Specifically in this is what we have. This is a document available from the platform here in the catalog overview. So here we have I think, a beautiful example of what it means that the music industry is growing. So this is the digital income that you have been generating as Sundance the years, without Asia, right? So this is and in 2016, let's not take 2015 because if I'm not mistaken, this is only one quarter, so it's but from 64,000 on a yearly basis has been growing to 120 in more or less 6 years. Yes, with a little bit probably down in 2020. This is, I think, it is an amazing example of the growth. You know, like that the music industry from streaming has been testifying. And your catalog is an amazing example of this growth. Basically, doubling up in digital income is good. Of course, behind this, there is also a lot of activities, metadata, as you were mentioning, ensure that the catalog was in the right playlists.
Yes, of course. I mean, the music industry has gone through a disruption period, which is, I mean, as one of the first industries, I guess, the disruption came to the music industry. And especially maybe in Scandinavia, it went quite fast with Spotify. For our clients or our audience, they are a bit older, maybe. They are not like front runners. So we have been quite lucky that we have been able to watch how this disruption took place. And then, you know, in due time, fit our business to the new world, so to speak. So we've been kind of prepared for this more than maybe other labels.
And you can see definitely this, and also I mean, participating on our fund. Then we will go a little bit deeper here, but there is a concept of capital, right? The importance of capital in a in a business which is creative in nature. How is the importance of capital actually? How is capital important in a business like music? And why is it important, let's say?
Well, in the way the music business works today, with streaming, as we talked about, the income comes very slowly. I mean, it takes quite a few years to gain what you have invested in the releases, and therefore you need a decent flow of liquidity to make sure that you can make these new releases. But on the other hand, you gain what we are also auctioning today. You gain a big catalog that will earn you income forever. So I guess our purpose is to get that liquidity and get that agility to be able to move when the right releases come along, to make sure that we keep the artists that are important to us with us, because we are able to do the releases that they want to do. And of course, a part of that is trying to export the music that we do. And in that export process, we need capital to do the extras, to do the extra thing to make your music listened to, and to get your music on the playlists for the different streaming services. And you see, today all music is available, and you need the listeners to find your music.
Yeah.
And to do that, you need capital.
Totally. And let me just ask you also another question. I think we touched it when we were speaking. And how is Asia important? And how do you foresee Asia or emerging markets, you know, new markets, are kind of important for the development of Sundance in the future?
Well, to jazz music, Asia is very interesting. We have done some great concerts in Thailand, for instance, making a great market there. Japan is still a physical market and is still developing into being a digital market. So that market would definitely grow. So we need to be there from the beginning. And it is still the beginning in Japan, because people are collectors. I hope there's no Japanese people that I will insult by saying that, but they are collectors, and thank you for that. but that market is changing as well. So so I will definitely think that we will see a growth in Japan. China is still quite new to us, and China is tricky because they have other kind of streaming services than we do in Denmark, which leads us to the point where we need a local distributor in China to make sure that our music is on the right platforms. And we have a good partnership there, but it still needs to develop.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely interesting to see how it will evolve, and we have the life of rights to see this. So it's
yeah, it's due time.
We have a long life of rights 30 years, long time to actually look at the development here. And I suppose just to one second, abstracting from the very interesting conversation, Nils, I suppose that we are getting close to the Q&A phase, or
we are, and there's actually a few questions that are coming in. So I would say to everybody, keep dropping those questions. We'll handle them. If you want, Marzio, you can still have an open question to with Laura, and then we will jump into the questions that got in over the chat and over our Discord channel.
Amazing. I think also we should also mention the promo code, right? It's
definitely. So yes, everyone, time to take your screenshot now. We have this nice promo code for everybody that is willing and interested in investing. So if you will enter this promo code in your profile section within the bonuses and promo section, you will benefit from a 5% cashback upon any successful single bids that you will place in the auction. So if you want to participate buying a share of that nice Sundance catalog, well, with this you already have a 5% cashback once your bid will be accepted. We also will waive and cover all fees for uploading funds, and this code will be valid for 30 days after your activation. So use it wisely, I would say.
Man, by the way, I just discovered that this is a pun of words, right? Instead of ANote music, it's a music note. It's be careful to write it properly.
I'm happy you understand the marketing creativity in it. Thank you.
Fantastic.
So no, I think we can stop sharing the screen so that we look at each other's faces while talking. I also see that actually Laura's father, Peter, the founder of Sundance Music, joined. So thank you, Peter, for being here. Feel free at any point if you want to intervene to share answers on the questions as well. I'll start, of course, like a true gentleman does, with questions for Laura. So, I mean, we kind of already touched upon it with the Asian market, but one of the questions that people had is how Sundance catalog is doing internationally. So you have you got distributors worldwide, but you talked about China being Asia and China being a specific market. Is this also the case for Latin America or the US, for example?
The US is very big for us. It is on our top 3 of countries that does well for us digitally. So the US is very big. South America, not so much. That's still an area that we need to take over. But the US is very big, and that's also why we invested in radio plugging, for instance. And we actually saw, not even did we see that our releases came on the top 10 or even top 3 of the jazz radios. We also saw a great increase in streaming for those releases. So there's definitely a way to promote the music in the radio plugging. So we are going harder on the US because we can see that the market could be even better. Sorry for switching to Danish.
It's okay. It's a good education for us all.
Yeah.
Multilingual. Actually, about that promotion, we have a question of David Denke here in the chat, who asked if you are leveraging and monetizing the Sundance catalog through video-centric platforms. He's saying this is an area that has been growing like YouTube and Instagram. So how important and how are you leveraging this?
We are not leveraging that at the moment. So that could definitely be an area that we could work more deeply with.
Clear. And one question that is a big talking topic nowadays is, you know, we often hear that streaming services pay little to the authors or the composers. As a record label and publisher, you also experience probably this, but the people are interested in hearing your opinion if you see an increase there in the future. For example, I know from previous discussions I had with some other people that in Denmark specific, there was this huge fight with YouTube not willing to correctly pay, and then the name is slipping me, but the rights organization protecting actually saying, okay, we're going to fight this, and in the end, then the Danish community, music community, won that fight. So do you see there's some progress in that field, and how do you feel about those payments?
Well, this actually came back to EU legislation that has now been done and is about to be into the national legislation in Denmark and in all other countries of the EU. So I definitely expect an increase in digital income, because at the moment there's a big value gap between what YouTube pays and what Spotify pays, for instance. YouTube has been claiming the safe harbor principle for quite some time, which means that they didn't think they had to pay because they didn't put up the music. It was their users who did so. But according to the new EU legislation, they have to. So there will be some fighting, and I can't say that this will be done in 1 or 2 or 3 years, but it will happen. And then you will definitely see maybe even a double of income of what we have today.
So those are good sites for everybody that's involved, from artists to creators to publishers and record labels, but also for our investors. I mean, getting in now can be a very nice upswing if those regulations change.
Definitely.
I see in the meanwhile a couple of questions coming in that might also be more ANote related. So I'll quickly switch with 1 or 2 questions to Marzio before coming back to you. And one of the questions we received on Discord is actually the question: how do you evaluate a catalog? So how do you put a price on a certain catalog? That is always interesting.
Yes. So there is one method and one only, let's say, that most of the players use for valuing catalogs, which is the multiple approach. So you take the royalties that the catalog has been generating in the last years, you know, the yearly numbers, and then you multiply them by a number. Let's say a number which can range between 6 and 16 times. And this is generally speaking where evaluation of a catalog can, I mean, according to market standards, where you're very likely to find the right number. So you take yearly generation, yearly royalties, and you multiply them by a number. Basically, this is the multiple approach to represent the number of years, you know, that you are valuing, you know, the number of years, the number of times of yearly royalties that you're valuing a catalog. This is an approach which is also found in traditional financial markets. For example, if you look at how traditional stocks are valued, you use the price earnings, PE. So you compare the value of Apple, for example, the stock, with how much earnings Apple generates. Or you use the price over the dividend. This is similar to the price over the dividend because it's comparing the value of a catalog to how much royalties, how much cash flows you're expected to generate. This is kind of the quantitative method. So you multiply by number, right? Usually you also include some qualitative analysis. So you want to use a higher valuation for a catalog which is old. Old means established. Old is not a bad word in music. Old means established. Old means mature. Old means that a lot of people, if it's still around, means that still listen to it. So it means that it's long lasting. Let's remember the music rights have an average life of 70 years. after the death of the last author, for example, in for the publishing rights, so very long-term assets, right? So the longer the catalog is, the better, because it means that it's stable and there for the long term. Also, the genre. The genre is a very important determinant. For example, you look at jazz. Jazz is a genre that typically demands a premium because it's a stable genre. So it's very unlikely to go up and down, maybe like hip hop instead, for example, which is a little bit more variable. So the price can go a little bit lower. And then, of course, how iconic it is, who is behind the catalog, the artists are touring. These are all kind of qualitative, metrics that you want to include in evaluation.
Great, thanks. Another question that we got in is, and this goes back more to the people that are unfamiliar with ANote music, is how do I get started by investing in music? How much do I need? And then a question that I mean, what are the minimum amounts? That of course depends on the platform, but you will be able to explain for our platform. What are the average returns on investments? And of course, then the question that many people are curious about, because I see two people dropping it here in our chat, is how does it work with taxation? How am I usually taxed on these revenues?
These are a lot of questions, though. I mean, I'm trying to go back to them, but okay. It's let me start with how much. So we try to make everything as simple as possible, right? So meaning that we divide each catalog in shares. So for example, if the catalog, for example, of Sundance, the estimated valuation is 3.6 million around the total. So a portion of it is listed on the platform around 183. You divide it in 10,000 shares, meaning that each portion of the catalog is valued at 18 euros. So in this case, the minimum amount is around 18 euros and 34. So our platform is for somehow democratizing, opening up the market also to investors and to fan base, to community, not only to the big pockets that can participate in investment funds. And from a point of view of what are the average returns, we are talking also in this case between 5 and 12, 13% on average, but they can go as high as 16, 17% on a yearly basis when you price the catalog. I mean, this is pretty remarkable, especially because you achieve this in cash on cash. So this is the return it gives, is return to you cash on cash. And generally it's much more stable than investment in stocks or public markets, where 1 year you're up 20%, the other year you're down 15 or whatever. And also for the crypto space, it's like this. Regarding taxation, it's a very interesting topic. Taxation, unfortunately, there is not one, overall regime around the world. Most of the countries have a different approach. Some, they tend to favor taxing, so applying lower tax rates to royalties, because they see royalties as kind of an income deriving from creators, which is so from culture. So they want to somehow promote this, so the lower taxations. Otherwise, you generally apply taxations that on capital gain, on dividends. It depends on the country, though. It's important to look at the national regulation. And I think that pretty much I covered this, and how do you
covered it all.
Create an account. And but let's go back to Laura. Laura, I think
yes. Well, actually, the next question comes from Tobias here in the chat, and is one that I think that can address both you and Laura. I would first like to hear the answer of Marzio, and then I think Laura can pick in. So the question from Tobias is, why is there a buyback option on my shares in the catalog? Does that not limit my upsides, or at least it puts my upside at risk to be capped at the 20% or buyback option number? So first, from a technical point of view, why do we have it? And then, of course, I would like to hear from Laura as a music rights owner, why it's important that this option is there for you.
I will give kind of an emotional answer and a technical answer, and then let's see what. I mean, kind of the emotional one is that we started basically 3 years ago, when we were having some of the first catalogs that we were listing on the platform. We were working for listing. We were speaking with one relevant artist, actually, one pretty important artist, and we were, at the beginning when we were starting, kind of speaking with him, and are you actually interested in listing your catalog on the platform? And he actually answers saying, no, I'm not, but I would be interested in buying back my catalog from the record labels and the publishers, whoever actually owns it. I have no clue who owns it now. And similar thing maybe for some record labels that maybe did some deals in the past. And the problem is that in the music industry, you have this concept on an emotional basis, let's say, where, once you sign a deal, you are done. I mean, you lose basically the rights to the creative process that you participate into. And this is something that we don't really like. We think that the music industry should change from this point of view, should give the right and the opportunity to the people that participate in the creative process to regain control of an asset, of something that emotionally is connected to them, emotionally, creatively, on a creativity basis. And then from a technical point of view, it's a replication of something that you also find in any stock exchange. On any stock exchange in the world, you have kind of what, it's not called buyback option, but it's called drag along. Once you acquire, like, for example, we see this for the Elon Musk that purchased Twitter. He went to Twitter shareholders after purchasing 9% of the total, and he said, okay, guys, this is the offer. I'm buying everything. Are you interested or not? And then actually people started, and the moment that you have more than 50% or something of the investors that agree on something, the rest, they have to sell as well. This is called the drag along clause. So from this point of view, we also, technically speaking, replicate is something that you also find on stock exchanges. Again, also this is not a feature that we invented, it's just replication of technical process.
Nice. So Laura, can you unmute your, yes, there we go. I just asked, there you go. So you can answer.
Well, I think Marzio's explanation on the feelings is quite accurate. Of course, it depends on who is selling, and there's a difference if it's a label or if it's an artist. On the artist side, I think that people have that feeling exactly as you described, Marzio, that they created this. And right now they want to sell it, but maybe they want to buy it back to regain control at some point. Of course, we have feelings in it as well. And we have artists who might at some point want to buy back some of their masters. But that's not the main issue, I guess. For us, the main issue is that we don't really know where we are in 20 years. And we must be able to do our work at the best. And that could be maybe selling the entire company for 10 million euro in 10 years. And then we need to be able to buy back these shares to be able to sell to a new owner. Some owners may just tag along and say, well, this is fine by us, we'll keep on paying these investors, but we might have to other buyers to buy back and own the entire catalog to be able to sell. I must say this is not a plan we have, but I'm just saying that it could be an issue. So that's why I think the buyback is quite important.
Yeah, it's important to going back to the terms. It's to include in a contract that you sign now that has a validity of 80 years, of 70 years, to be able to include as many clauses to grant stability in royalty payouts, making sure that though there is not that level of inflexibility which might be damaging the business afterwards. So this is why a clause like a buyback, which is protecting everybody, from our standpoint is, and indeed it is one of the examples of something that where it could come handy.
Another question for Laura. We're nearing the, well, actually already a bit over time, but we keep going until just before 8. So I suggest we have 3 more questions. And the first one for Laura is one that the community on Discord wanted to know. They are actually curious, once you raised all the funds through the partnership with us, do you already have, can you actually disclose what you're planning on doing with this? Is it to reinvest in the catalog? Is it to go to specific artists? Because that's also cool insights for everybody to know.
Of course.
There are no competitors of Sundance in this case. That is
No, but I think what I will disclose will not, I mean, do anything to the competition, because people will know who we are and how we work. And we always invest our money in the catalog in different ways. We either invest them in of course, developing new artists and doing new releases. Or in this case, I think we will use a portion to make sure that our export is still stable and growing. We have, of course, some artists that we know are doing very well and who we want to elaborate further on. So I would say that we will invest in the catalog and maybe try to take the opportunities to invest in not even artists, but also in what do you say, new kind of methods to gain new income streams. So to, you know, it's difficult to explain, but we have some opportunities to go into some systems that will help us gain new income streams simply by doing our jobs more effective than we do them today.
So if I could summarize that to ease up for you, I mean, the investment that the money that you are collecting through this investment from the music fan and investors will enable you to actually boost and do the job that you're currently doing better, allowing new opportunities. So that's one that I really like to hear, because often we see on social media people that aren't informed, and we can't blame them, but they're afraid that a service like ours would be there to make a capitalism system behind the music, and that we're actually stealing from the music creators. And so it's really good for us to hear that. Well, we always saying this, but it's actually good for everybody to hear that also from the music sector side, it's something that is giving a leverage and a boost to the industry.
And I think it's important to keep track of here that this is money that we sell from our label side, and it doesn't affect the royalties that the artists receive. I mean, I think that's important to remember as well. Yeah,
very important. Thanks for stressing that, Laura. I think seeing all the questions, there's many, we won't be able to answer all, but we can come back, join, like Geoffrey just shared. Everybody feel free to join us on Discord. That's where you have a quick and fast access with everyone of the team. But the last two questions that I would like to address are actually about more ANote. So sorry, Laura, I'm giving quickly the word to Marzio.
Don't worry.
Again. So Marzio, one question that came in is, of course, what is the risk related to investing on ANote music? So what happens in case ANote music ceases to exist? I mean, what happens to the ownership of the catalog in such a case?
Blockchain, guys, will save us all. Blockchain is the reason, actually, why finally you have an opportunity of finding a good reasoning for people using blockchain. This is actually interesting, because many times we speak with people and they say, why do you use blockchain? And usually expect an answer which is, oh, because it's cool. Now, actually, there is an important reason behind it. The reason is that blockchain is a database, it's a system, and it's also a system of e-wallets and payment methods, which is, I mean, eternally is not a good word, of course, but which is independent from a company which is using it. So using and encoding information about ownership of catalog shares and transferring and making the payments in investors' wallets and going more and more on chain, make sure that we are just the intermediary that, you know, is organizing, let's say the transaction is helping out the players one side and the other one, but then of course we don't have counterparty risk involved. So if you want to give pure exposure to investors, to fans, to anybody, or to an asset, call it a house, call it a music right transaction, you need to be able to create this independence. So we do it with blockchain, which is the way, I mean, saying in more simple terms, we write all the information about ownership of a catalog, of any of the portfolio of the investors in the blockchain in a specific wallet, which is the wallet of Algorand standard asset. So each of the investors have a wallet. Each of the catalogs also represented by an Algorand standard asset, which is a smart contract at the end of the day. And also we are right now using the funds. We don't touch them. Also from regulation, whenever an investor uploads 100 euros, we cannot touch it. It's only working with APIs on an external segregated account at a regulated entity. So basically, ANote Music is useless. We can stop the webinar. No, I mean, of course, it's organizing and but it's important to keep everything segregated and independent.
I appreciate you just ruining all my marketing efforts for the past year, but that's fine. Let's end on now.
We need to make people perceive that we are not relevant, which is at the end of the day, it's important, you know, for keeping survival of these very important assets. It's enforcing segregation, enforcing independence between the various processes. It's very, very relevant.
Very true. And we're here to make the entire process more democratic and more transparent. So at least throw in the positive note there. Last but not least, it's a few more standard questions, and I like to invite everybody to have a visit on our website. We also have a support center where you can find a lot of information, especially like questions like on these answers on these questions. But Marzio, what is the average ROI, so return on investment, that we've seen? Second point, what is the period that you can expect royalties to be received? And the third one, how often are you usually expected to receive those royalties?
Yes. So the average ROI that we've seen in the last 12 months on a platform basis, wide basis from all the investors, it's around 12%. Numbers on numbers, kind of higher than what we were expecting, honestly. And this is very positive. Yeah, annualized, so on a yearly basis, 12 point something percent. Also, a very good statistic is something that most of the platforms, trading platforms, they don't advertise this number because it's terrible usually. It's the number of people, the percentage of people that are profitable. You get, oh no, you create an account on Plus 500, you create an account on a broker platform. How many of the people that create an account are profitable after 1 year? The statistic is usually lower than 40%. So more than 60% lose money of the investors. On our platform, we have 96% of investors that are profitable. So 96% of the people are more I mean, the valuation of the catalog of the portfolios right now are higher than the initial investment. And this is due to the royalties. I mean, the fact that catalogs pay out royalties means that there is kind of a high tide, you know, every year. Which is increasing the value of portfolio because there is some cash that investors are receiving. So the value, of course, goes up. Now, if the valuation of a catalog goes down, then of course there is a capital loss. But so far we haven't seen nothing. So that it's 96%. It's a very good statistic. And regarding the time, catalogs, they usually pay out either on monthly basis, kind of not often, quarterly basis, or semi-annual basis. In this catalog, in this case, Sundance will be paying on a quarterly basis, Laura. So yeah, in this case, royalties are expected to be received within the next 3 months after the auction close. And on average on the platform, it depends. It's either on a quarterly basis or semi-annual basis. But of course, if you have a portfolio of different catalogs, it's basically on a monthly basis. I mean, it's because, you know.
And depending on which catalog you buy in, you will get the life of rights, which is a certain the entire life of the artist or the creators plus a certain amount of years after their death. In some cases, the investments are for 5, 10, 12 years, depending. So always make sure to look at the catalog listing period. That's in the case of Sundance, we're speaking about life of rights. So that's why we were saying that we have a good long way for seeing how everything evolves. And with that said, I will close down the webinar. Thank you very much, Laura.
No, let's put some. I would like from Peter actually. Peter, what is? Let's put a song.
I'll ask Peter to unmute.
Let's also present Peter, who is. Okay.
There we go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. No, I could add. I think it's fantastic to get this opportunity when you work with music, as I have done for more than 40 years. One of the main problems is that you build up your catalog. You build up something you yourself think is valuable, and you, every time you earn some money, you invest in new music, and you think you make lovely music. But during the years, when you go to the bank to say, I have this house full of music, why don't you reckon this as a house as you reckon a real house? Because we have rents paid by the earnings from the income sources, but banks don't understand this. And if you imagine somebody investing in real estate, if they had to pay 100% before they could buy a new estate, I mean, for us now, we're having the opportunity to get realized in cash some of the investments we have done for past and which comes in the future, makes it a lot more fun, because all the dreams we have to make better music, to promote the music better, have a possibility to come through, because our estate gets physical. You can use it instead of it's just dead and waiting for coming through the next 70 years.
Marzio, you did great by giving Peter the word, because he's leaving us all on that emotional touch, and it's very good point. So thanks for sharing that, Peter. Thanks for being with us. Thanks also for the partnership you and Laura did with us. And I think also inside our community, it's very clear that the catalog is super well received. I mean, in less than a week, we're 5 days into the auction, and we have it for nearly 90% completed. So for sure, this listing was very successful, and it shows us the love that people have for jazz music, for music in general, and also for the great stability that this catalog shows. So thanks for doing this listing with us. We're very happy to have you. And with that said, I think it's time to close down, because we are already far past the time that we should have closed down. But with all those interesting questions, it was great. For those who don't have an account on ANote Music, go create one right now. It's free. You can check out all the catalogs. You can check out the details. You can join the auction that you want. If you have further questions, don't hesitate to send us an email on support@anotemusic.com. Reach out over chat, or just join us on Discord, because that's where we're super active. Thanks for joining the webinars. There will be more webinars in the future, and we will make sure that especially the start runs a bit more smooth.
Yes.
And concerning those little pop-up gifts, so thanks for all the engagement today, but we will be reaching out to Tobias, Davey, and Robbie by email for being so active and asking great questions. And guys, we know we didn't handle all your questions, but feel free to ask them in other channels. I will be sure answering them. So with that said, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Laura.
Bye.
Thank you, Marzio. And of course, thank you, everybody, for being here. Hope to see you soon in our community. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.